This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Podcast, Hoots on the Ground with no bullshito. And I'm coming to you today with one of my favorite topics, capability development. When I think of capability development, I believe the construction industry has got a mix up on developing people's skills versus just making people productive. How many times on project sites have you heard, just get it done? I don't care how you get it done, just get it done. That is just simply wrong, just plain wrong. If you are encouraging a get it done mentality, you're really missing out on the innovation of the worker, of the person who's at the project level, putting the work in place. And so when we empower those folks to innovate, then we're really going to get some solid feedback that can drive jobs forward. I believe our industry's got too much emphasis on productivity and not enough emphasis on capability development. And I think that's because we lack to understand the system as a whole. And when we develop one's capabilities and what that actually impacts from a system-wide perspective, as that knowledge lives on and on. Compound interest, I believe some say in the financial world. Just think about that applied to knowledge. Today, we're going to talk about capability development, and I'm going to run you through what is capability development, what are the different levels of capability development, what are the different stages of capability development, and then most importantly, how do I develop capabilities internally in order to maximize my impact externally. I want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Dean Reed because Dean sent me down this road of capability and discovering what are capabilities. Dean sent me on this Charles Duhigg path, reading a book called The Power of Habit and another book called Smarter, Faster, Better, both of which I highly recommend. In these books, we talk about how to develop capabilities and what capabilities mean in order to maximize the output from a systemic perspective, not looking short term, not looking, hey, I'm going to lose a half hour this week while I train my folks or while I innovate or pull information from my folks. I might lose 30 minutes or an hour this week, but man, next week I'm going to gain 15 minutes. And then the following week's 15 minutes. So 4 weeks later, I'm paid back for my hour that I've lost. And everything added on to that is just bonus time. I also want to shout out Miss Carla Saplisky because Miss Carla and I did a presentation for the Lean Construction blog. In fact, we titled ourselves Hootski, and we applied this systems thinking approach to capability development. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about comes from that presentation. And man, that was so much fun exploring that from a systems thinking mindset and better understanding how do we develop capabilities. I want to dive into first, what is capability? And to me, capability is having the knowledge, having the understanding or the ability and the capacity to get something done. That could even mean having the right resources in order to get things done, right? That's a whole nother capability. I'm empowering you the capabilities to get your job done. That's a whole nother level of capability. And so even the way we onboard onto different projects, right? We're developing people's capabilities right away. In fact, your company probably has a capability that distinguishes itself from others. And so I really want to encourage you to think about what is your capability? What are you capable of doing? What do you have the resources, the tools, the things around you that you need in order to make happen? Which really leads me to think about last week's episode with Harry. And we talked about the socio-ecological model where everything starts with the individual and then branches out to a team and then to an organization and then to an industry. And I'm a firm believer that's how things grow from a knowledge perspective as well. And we've really got to look at the different levels of capability from that perspective, right? There's different capabilities that we need to understand internally as human beings before we can look externally to help the next level of teams or organizations or families. If you have the things right internally, then you're able to go to that next level. And then once you have that figured out, then you can go to that next level. And again, that's how policy grows. And so those levels of capability, right? When I think about, okay, how do I want to teach an individual? My approach with an individual is going to be way different than if I'm approaching it with a team. And likewise, my approach with an individual and a team is going to be entirely different than if I'm approaching an organizational change. And likewise, if I'm seeking industry change, my approach is going to be entirely different. And each one of those is customized at that level to better understand, ask questions, and pull the information out of what is the issue here, right? What is the elephant in the tree, as some say? And it's an awesome dad joke. You know why you can't ever find an elephant in a tree? So those different levels of capability development, right? Am I developing an individual? Am I developing a team? And if I'm developing a team, what are my current capabilities of that group or organization? And what do I lack? And where do I want to put my energy, into my strengths or my weaknesses? That's always a challenging question. Then you take that and again, you extrapolate from a team, you get into an organizational approach, and we've got different layers there. And so we want to speak to each layer customized and direct to them so that we understand what is the issue, what is causing us the inability to develop capability, because that's everything. And so I challenge you intentionally, does your organization develop capabilities at the individual, team, company, and even the industry level? What are we doing as a group to cross those lines in the sand and say, hey, I want to learn from you, I want to learn from you, and then we make it better, and so that everybody understands what to expect when they show up to a project site. Say, hey man, where's your TAC plan? Where are the drawings? Where are the specs? Where can I like draw out and tell you my plan and how I think things should go? Those are the expectations that we should be showing up to jobs with. Hey, I already understand what I got. I got all the materials I need. Like, I'm ready to go. That should be the expectation. And as a group, as an organization, right? Not as a company, but as an industry, we've really got to figure out, how do we come together and how do we share and appropriate knowledge in such a way that it ultimately benefits the person doing the work? Because yeah, mid-level management, we're suffering, but think about the impact that we're having on the trade workers. My goodness, if you're tearing work out or doing work 2 or 3 times because the quality expectation isn't understood, the windows weren't put in on time because now the drywall is leaking, or I got a flood in my flooring. So, oh my goodness, I've been through it and I understand. And I've fought those battles, and it's easier when we just partner folks in and we're able to understand the job as a whole and systemically flow through it. So I encourage you to think about capabilities at each one of those levels, from individual all the way out to industry wide to institutional, to where we're actually developing change amongst the entire population. So you always wonder, and you've always got to set standards in order to understand, where am I currently and where am I headed? And so I think it's important to acknowledge that there are different stages in capability development. Some of this might get a little bit out of control, but as you take and start thinking about these different levels of capability, now we've got different stages of capability. And I've showed this with my accountability meter sometimes, or you can think of it like Bloom's taxonomy, where again, we're just getting to know something, right? And I like to think of it in just 4 stages. And I think it might even be 5 stages with the mastery. And so at first you're incompetent. You don't even know what you don't know. So you're a beginner, but then you start to become, you understand it, but you're still incompetent, right? So you're a beginner, you're not even aware, and then you become incompetent. And then on this third quadrant, you start to become competent, right? And then on the fourth one, you become unconsciously competent, where it's like mastery, some say. And then you just proceed into developing or innovating from there. And I think it's very important to understand and have a real clear expectation of where you are at each one of these stages from a maturity perspective, I'll even call it. So, from an individual, how do I fit into this team, and what capabilities do I need to develop in order to really facilitate and help support this team? And like can be said for my team, right? What does my team need to do or learn or understand better in order to facilitate or get plugged into the organization as a whole? And then you start thinking, what my organization, like, okay, now I'm at this level where I'm an executive, I'm bringing in work, we're getting work done, I'm holding folks responsible, we're innovating in the ways that we develop and do business. Now I'm thinking and I'm applying some of these principles, and I'm really saying, how do I innovate now? How do we do things different? How do I experiment? At each one of these stages of mastery, apply for each level and each tool that we're looking at. At each one of these stages, it's important to realize, just self-reflect and better understand, where am I at and what am I even measuring myself to? And the only thing that you should be measuring yourself to is yourself, right? Are you improving on a daily basis with the tools that you're using or the knowledge that you're gaining, or how are you using this information to better yourself and or the world? One thing that I've learned applying lean construction in the field, working with teams, trying to develop team alignment and team capability, is twofold here. One is that each team that you start, no matter if these people have worked together before or not, is a whole nother project. So it's a whole nother alignment. It's a whole nother, yeah, you think you know this person, but do you really know them? Ask them a question that you want to know about them. And so it's this whole separate bond development. Like maybe some relationships pull from job site to job site, but as far as developing the overall team, it's something that has to be restarted at each project. One thing that I've realized, and I think some call it the Yerkes Dobson curve or the Yerkes Dobson law, it's basically stress and arousal. So if I'm not super interested because I just know like that subject already, it's on a bell curve. And I get a little, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, like at the beginning. And then at the middle, oh, you've really piqued my interest. Like now I'm like on the table and like into it. And now we're like really going somewhere. And but then if you like start like going too far, you might lose me. And I'm like, oh boy. And you can see it in my eyes when I get lost. I don't hide it. I'm like, hey, help me. But the point being, right, or some call this the Goldilocks curve, right? Where oh, it's too hot, oh, it's too cold, oh, it's just right. And so you really got to think about that as you're trying to develop people or team or organizational or industry capabilities. We really got to think like, how much can somebody hold at one time? Because if you try to encourage too much change, you'll fail. I guarantee it's the little J versus big J. And I think I've done this. If I haven't done this, forgive me. But it's your normal productivity gets better over time. You're shooting this 45. When I introduce change, it's loss of immediate production, right? Because you're learning. And so your production goes down, but eventually it goes up, thus forming the little J. Now, if my J is too big and I lose too much productivity when I'm trying to improve and get better, my team just, like I either bore them because they already know this, or chances are with me, I'm overwhelming them and I'm stressing them out, trying to add things to it without taking things away. So that's one huge lesson that I've learned personally through my years in each seat of the construction role, as well as now coaching teams is, hey, one, we've got to restart each project. Like we've got to realign each project. Even if every worker was the exact same worker, we've still got to set a standard. We've still got a custom job that we've got to apply our understanding to and align our understanding as a team. And secondly, and most important, not overwhelming people with the amount of change all at once. Giving them a chance to baby step into that change and feel like, ooh, this change feels all right. I'm already noticing productivity. It's, oh yeah, you like some of that? Let me give you a little bit of this. And then before you know it, they're change junkies like you and me. I want to end this way, and it's a teaser, and I'm sorry, but I'm starting to learn this kind of social media thing. They're trying to pull you in here. I want to give you some ideas on how to really develop capabilities. And again, these ideas, I'm going to dive into more. These kind of setting me up for the next few solos that I want to do. But these concepts are huge to me. Again, they're the development of my studies with Dean Reed, with Hal Maycomer, with systems thinking, with Ms. Carla Sapliski, Ms. Terry Erickson, Mr. George Hunt, Colin Milby, like all these folks have sent me on this learning capability development journey, applying systems thinking to it. And there's something really huge there. And so I want to encourage y'all to really think about these next few concepts that I'm going to toss at you. And then we'll go into more detail in future podcasts where I get to explain these concepts a little deeper and maybe even help you understand how, when I coach teams and when I align teams, that I really focus on these things. Again, high level, the focus is always on pause and reflect. And yes, that does lead to some awkward moments. Yes, they feel like what we're experiencing right now. That's okay, because Miss Jen Lacey taught us getting outside our comfort zone is when we're really learning and growing as individuals. I encourage you to check out that episode that's coming up, Pause and Reflect. Getting outside your comfort zone, that's a whole nother concept that really develops learning and promotes growth and allows the ability for you to just put yourself in those situations and make things happen. A couple other quick ones. The Art of Radical Candor Feedback. It's a great book by Kim Scott. There's some quadrants on this one. Again, I won't explain them here, but the sense is I care for you personally and I'm going to challenge you directly. And that's the quadrant that I'm living in. And that's the quadrant that I expect everybody around me that's living with me to hold me accountable to that standard. I want you to challenge me directly, and I want you to care for me personally. If you can do those two things, we're going to have a fantastic relationship. Another one that Mr. Jesus Hernandez has taught me is the art of questioning. There are a few different ways to ask questions, and you can really manipulate somebody's ability to think about a situation versus just solutionizing or providing answers for people, like leading the witness, as my man calls it. We really got to think about those questions from a perspective of, am I encouraging somebody to think? Am I being inquisitive about this, or am I trying to lead them somewhere? Am I advocating for something, or am I just, hey, what's the deal here? What's on your mind? Like, to me, that I love starting there. What's on your mind? Because that just opens it up to the possibilities. Being contextless, oh, that's such a beautiful thing, because then you really understand deeper where somebody is, what they're thinking. I was just in a group the other day where this came up, like, hey, should we give them context? No, don't give them no context. Let them develop the context, because that takes it a layer deeper of where that person is. Again, radical candor feedback. I care about you personally. I'm going to challenge you directly. The art of questioning, I call it, asking inquisitive, open-ended, not yes, no, not one answer, but like those questions where it's like, maybe there's some awkward silence and then I have to answer, or maybe can you repeat the question, or can you give me the country of origin? Anyways, so that's another one, right? The art of question. Nicholas Modig taught me pushing form, yet pulling content, right? So I've got these guidelines and parameters. I know the direction that we want to head, but I can't tell people where to run. I got to pull that information from them. I got to understand that. And I only do that through using these other ways of developing capabilities. And so, again, all of these, I really look forward to diving in. There's a couple more. I won't spoil it, but one is culture. Yes, Jen Lacey, it's culture. And I can only do that one at the end once we have a common understanding of all of these things in ways that we're developing capabilities and developing systems that encourage not just us to develop capabilities, but for us to develop the ability to develop capabilities. And I think that's another huge part of it. The way I started this podcast was understanding how important it is to develop capabilities versus just be productive, because I do care how you're getting the work done, because there's an easier way. I want to hear about it, and I want to do it that way so that we can get the work done faster, so we can get the work done with better quality, so we can get the work done safer, so that the human being doing the work is happier. It just all makes sense. And all I got to do is put my pride aside and say, hey, teach me, learn me real fast. That was one of my favorite sayings on the job site. Hey, could you learn me what you're doing real quick? And then look at me like, what, were you crazy? Didn't you go to college? I'm like, yeah, we didn't learn this stuff. Not at all. Not even close. Learn me something. I encourage you to say that on your job sites today. Go out there and say, hey, Mr. Pipefitter, learn me something. Or Mr. Electrician, learn me something. Hey, find a carpenter. Carpenters will learn you something all day long. That's how you develop capabilities, right? And that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And so we're going to talk about these things and other ways that you can develop capabilities, and how we can apply these concepts at each one of the levels in that socio-ecological model of from individual all the way out to an industry wide policy. I am a firm believer that there's a way to do this, and that we, the Lean Builder Nation, are going to be the leaders in transforming this industry into a people first, care about human beings, because it's the right thing to do. I look forward to that, because that's just what Lean Builders do, baby.